it is Breast Health Awareness Month. We don't like to say Breast Cancer Awareness Month because you know what? They haven't found a cure to this in all the years they've been doing it, and here we're working with prevention. So this is where we're going to be coming from. We're here for breast empowerment and for education and for detoxing and having happy, healthy breast. So tonight we're going to look at, on my PowerPoint, the perverse relationship between breast cancer and environmental estrogens. And I've been doing this, like Jean said, for 9 years. I've imaged thousands of women. And my colleagues who are also thermographic technicians, we're starting to see an overabundance of women presenting and men with estrogen dominance. And a lot of this estrogen dominance is coming from environmental estrogens. And this is actually creating havoc on our endocrine system. And we know that a lot of breast cancer is actually driven by estrogens. So with that said, let's see, we're going to look at some of the stats. I mean, we got to look at the stats first to kind of see where we are. There's over 300,000 new cases in women. There's 2,500 new cases in men. And 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer in their life. And breast cancer is the leading killer of women 35 to 54. Now, this is what we're going to, Sylvie and I are going to focus on this. 8 out of 10 cancers are from environmental toxins. And breast cancer is expected to rise 30% to 2030. This is across the board. This is all cancers. Breast cancer, all cancers are expected to increase. But I want you to take a look at this number. There's $17 billion that are spent on breast cancer in this country. $15 billion is spent on research. And I just want to read this. According to the National Institute of Health, it says that breast cancer is the most expensive cancer. And it is expected to reach $20 billion in 2020, that's right now. And the rising cost and ever escalating out-of-pocket expenses are having more and more patients go into debt. So I would say, ladies, wouldn't you think our breasts are monetized? Because if you see at the bottom here, there's only, I can't see down here, it's only 1 to 3% is spent on prevention. 1 to 3% is spent on prevention. And I guarantee you, in Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we will never hear the word environmental estrogens and carcinogens. It's always rah, rah, find the cure, right? Pink ribbon. No, we use a green ribbon because we're into breast health. So the next slide is, where are these toxins coming from? Where are these environmental estrogens coming from? They're coming from the air that we breathe, the food that we ingest, particularly like synthetic hormones that are coming out of cattle and our milk and our cheese supply, fluoride in the water. There's a lot of New Yorkers are on the line right now. We have fluoride in our water, bisphenol A, parabens. It's interesting because the bisphenol A, which is a plastic, and parabens, they've done breast tissue samples around the country, and these chemicals come up. Phthalates are also from plastics, mercury, bromide. Bromide was taken was put in the bread years ago, and it actually creates havoc on our thyroid and our breasts because the iodine can't be uploaded. So this is where we're going to look. So what exactly are these environmental estrogens? They are estrogens that come from outside of our body. They come in like estrogens, and then they park on the receptor sites and create havoc on our endocrine system. These are synthetic. These are synthetic, but they act like hormones, but yet they are not estrogens. They're foreign estrogens. And our skin is the largest organ that we have. And you think about what we do with makeup. You know, we have blusher, eyeshadow, body lotion, foundation, fake tan. These all have environmental disruptors, endocrine disruptors. So what we put on our face, we're walking out of the door every day with beauty care that's giving us about 125 toxins. And so what we put on our skin, it is absorbed in about 26 seconds. So we have to think about, you know, getting environmentally safe. And by the way, Sylvie has excellent skincare products because I use it. So the growing breast. I love this image of Jane Mansfield. I mean, that's her real breast. I don't think she had implants back then. But this has been happening since hang on here, since Since 1960, the average breast size was 34B. 34B. I'm a 34B since the 60s. I haven't changed. 34B. And it's increased to 34C in the 70s. And now into the 80s, it is the 90s. The average size is 34 double D. Now, it is up in the 2000s to double K. So we are seeing breasts growing in young girls. We're seeing them in young boys. And we're seeing them in men. I don't remember years ago, Seinfeld, they came up with a man's ear. Remember that? I don't know if I can remember that time period that, because men were getting breasts, they were trying to have a bra for men. So the breasts are getting larger. And, oh, darn it. Let me go back to that, sorry. So the growing breast. Okay, so we're gonna skip on to what thermography is, and then we're going to go back to these environmental toxins. So thermography is looking at heat in the body as opposed to anatomy. It is a thermogram is actually means just an image of heat. So on the left side, that's what a thermogram looks like. It's looking for the bilateral heat in the breast, and the right side is looking at the vascular patterns, and we can see the environmental estrogens in this gray scale. A lot of companies don't use the gray scale, but again, they're looking at the heat differences, and they're using, it's detecting physiology as opposed to anatomy. That means it's looking at heat, and it can be seen many years before a mammogram without radiation. In some cases, it can be up to 8 to 10 years before a mammogram. So if a woman, particularly if she has dense breast, if it's a lump, bump, or a cyst, it can actually detect if it's metabolically active, and that can actually reduce unnecessary biopsies. If your doctor says, well, I don't believe in thermography, well, thermography is not a belief system, it is a science. It is actually physics, it's what it is. And there's been over 800 published articles on breast cancer and thermography, and this can be found in the Index Medicus. So we sometimes have to be polite and educate our doctors. So, okay, this is the slide I was trying to find. So this is in the grayscale, and this is what estrogen dominance looks like. It classically can come up looking like leopard spots, and you'll see on the image on the right, I would say that woman was pretty toxic. That's more of an extreme. On a 1 to 10, she was a 10. But what it likes to do, it likes to park on fatty tissue. So fat is called the third estrogen. So what we're seeing on that camera left with the lady overweight, all that mottling are actually pockets of inflammation where these toxins are residing. Just like you don't eat the fat on a fish, because that's where the mercury and everything resides. That's where the toxins like to go, is to fatty tissue. So don't worry, there are many things that we can take in the plant-based kingdom that actually can metabolize those estrogens out of the body, and a woman or a man doesn't have to live with this. So the key is, I like to quote Dr. Patrick Fratellone in the city, if anybody knows who he is. He's an integrative healthcare physician. He said, you wouldn't leave toxins on your kitchen table, right? So why would you want to leave them on your breast? So with that said, let's go to the next slide. And this is a gentleman, a man with a lot of estrogen. And if we can make it, does my pointer show right there? Does that show? Yes, it does. Well, you see that dark spot around his nipple? This gentleman had breast cancer. So he was in his 40s, and starting in 1983, male testosterone has dropped 25%, and the estrogen has increased by 45%. And sperm count continues to drop. And they're starting to see this pretty much around the world. If anybody ever saw that movie called Plastic Ocean, anybody see that? It was a documentary on how the plastic in the ocean is creating estrogen everywhere. So they started finding that male fish in estuaries were becoming female. This is going back about 15 years to the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland. So now they're finding male amphibians are starting to have eggs on their testes. Wait, that wouldn't be that. They're starting to have, I knew this, they're finding eggs on male amphibians. Let's just say that. I don't know what part of the body they have. Maybe it's their legs, I don't know, but it's on those frogs. So with that, go to the next one. So I ask everyone to be an informed consumer, because really we have 85,000 synthetic chemicals approved, and they're coming on the market daily. We don't know what they're doing to our body. Many are carcinogenic and hormone disruptors. And the average American carries 100 chemicals in their body. Well, what's the lifetime effect of this? You just never know when it's going to flip a switch. But random tests found that there's over 200 chemicals in the core blood of infants. And that means that they are being living with this. They're being born into a sea of estrogen. Hang on one second. Just where did I get this? And again, it enters our body through inhalation, ingestion, and absorption. And for breast cancer, excuse me, the greatest concern is really these hormone disruptors. So these chemical byproducts, again, they mimic the effects of estrogen in the body, and it doesn't act normal. So again, we have to become an informed consumer. Sadly, there's no testing for women under 40 unless she has dense breast and she's found a lump early on, and they will insist on getting a mammogram. So with this, many women start getting mammography early as they're in their 20s or 30s, depending if there's lumps found. But again, no available testing for women under 40, and there's 47,000 deaths per year. Again, it's starting to encroach upon the lives of younger and younger women. And when it's found, it's usually very aggressive. And this is a nursing mother who has inflammatory breast cancer. And it could never be found on a mammogram because it's heat. So it was found on thermography. Again, we don't know what flips the switch, if it's estrogens or toxins, but whatever it is, it's affecting the switch on the immune system. So it's what they're offering us right now. What they're offering us is conventional detection, and it's an anatomical approach. So if it's a lump, bump, tumor, then you can find it because it's got to be big enough to block an X-ray beam. So that would be an MRI, an ultrasound, an X-ray, or a mammogram. So basically they're saying either, yes, you have cancer, no, you don't. But what they're really saying is, no, it's not big enough to be seen. So come back when it's big enough to be seen, then we can treat it. That's not prevention. Prevention is finding it when it's in the stages of heat, and then it can be treated. Lifestyles can be changed. Plant-based medicine can be, taken by the person. But again, by the time they find it on an anatomical study, it's been there for a long time. So mammograms emit ionizing radiation. It can be painful. 80% of biopsies are false positives. This is NIH. And 10% are false negatives. Again, National Institute of Health. And the guidelines are being challenged at this time. So this is really too much radiation for women, period. But now they're saying that a woman should start at 50. But I get phone calls all the time, says, well, I had my first mammogram at 40 years old. Now, if a woman has dense breast, they will offer her something called 3D tomosynthesis. That's a mammogram that actually delivers, that's a typo, it's really 38% more ionizing radiation. And the National Cancer Institute states that radiation is a risk factor for malignancy. So I like to quote Dr. Christiane Northrup. She said, why on earth would you want to radiate healthy breast, right? Why would you want to radiate healthy breast? So if a woman has one session, that's usually 4 films of a mammogram, it exposes a woman to 1 rad, that's radiation absorbed, or more than 1,000 times more than a chest X-ray. So if cancer is present, the extreme compression during a mammogram can actually cause cancerous cells to spread. And the Lancet is a very prestigious medical journal. And here we have, this was the other thing, the reason I wrote my book, excuse me, was that I see many women with dense breast, and they've had early biopsies because they find a lump and they say, well, we have to see if it's cancerous. And again, 80% of these biopsies are false positives. So with a woman with dense breast, which is 49% of the population, it's not abnormal, but it's just what they are. But a mammogram can have a sensitivity as low as 27%. So if a woman has relied only on mammography or MRI or an ultrasound, her chance of they finally find it, the cancer could be as high as 75% because they can't see it. So if you look at this slide right here at the bottom, that white, that's actually a mammogram with a woman with dense breast, and it looks white. So a tumor is white, so it's really looking for a snowball in a snowstorm. And if you look at the camera left up there, the yellow and the gray, and you'll see that little red circle, high camera left, that's the tumor that you see below that was found on the ultrasound. I'm sorry, the thermogram. So thermogram is actually, it's an adjunct to an anatomical study. So you wanted to have the heat and the anatomy, but we prefer an ultrasound because it is environmentally safe. So exactly what is cancer? I'd have you guys answer that in the audience if we were together, but I will say it's the uncontrolled proliferation of cells, and we all have cancer cells within us, but it's normally kept in check by a strong immune system. And one thing we're learning about this COVID is that it's really important how strong our immune system is, because that's our health. So let's see how this works with thermography. So this is the beginning of a new blood supply, angioneogenesis. So angio is new, neo is new, genesis, well, angio is blood, and neogenesis is a new blood supply. So I broke that up. It's actually one word, but I wanted to break that up so you could see it. So in the beginning, when a tumor is starting to be formed and it's getting its inflammation, it is picked up on the camera as heat. And if you move over to a blood vessel growth, now it's being oxygenated, it's getting nutrients, and now the camera shows that it has a heat signature of cancer. Cancer is hot, nothing else isn't. The rest is just inflammation. During this time is when a woman can start changing her lifestyle. She can start changing her diet. She can start doing detoxes. She can start taking special blood tests to see if the cancer's in her body. But by the time it gets over to a tumor growth, now it's big enough to be seen on an anatomical study. It can block an X-ray beam. That's when they can say, oh, this is cancer, now we can treat it. That's not prevention. Prevention is treating it in those 8 to 10 years that it's cooking on the back burner. Does that make sense? It literally has been there for a long time by the time that they can find it on conventional screening. So we can't talk about breast health without talking about dental health. This is another thing that we are seeing as thermographers. We're seeing it across the board. We're seeing, I mean, of course, if there's a root canal or, you know, amalgams or something, we're going to see more inflammation. But we're seeing a lot of inflammation coming from, you know, bad gums, or we don't even know where a lot of it's coming from, because a lot of these biological dentists are saying, well, the mouth is just an extension of the stomach. So again, working with a biological dentist is very important. And having your teeth cleaned is very important, because this is, and you'll see in this image, it's draining right into her breast. So the lymph system is connected to the mouth and to our breast. So almost to wrap up, I have a 6-month breast detox protocol, and it works with detoxing these estrogens off the breast. And you'll see the woman on the right, how loaded she was with these estrogens, and 6 months later, you can see, and she's been back now twice, and her breasts look good. So she gets a year follow-up. And so just to wrap this up, sulforaphane is a compound found in broccoli seed. It is the best weapon against breast cancer. It actually goes to the receptor sites and metabolizes off these foreign estrogens. And we talk about broccoli sprouts, but they've actually found it's the broccoli seed that has the most efficacy with it. The other thing our breasts thrive on is iodine. We don't understand iodine has been demonized over the years, excuse me. And actually it turns on estriol, which is a positive estrogen. So our breasts thrive on iodine. Our entire endocrine system thrives on iodine. And lastly, we can't talk about breast health without talking about vitamin D. So real quick, because I have to wrap this up, they found that in University of Albany, they took breast cancer cells and they put vitamin D on it, and it shriveled up within 2 days. And one thing I missed earlier on, the way they found this connection between breast cancer and plastics was at Duke University. They found in the test tubes of the breast cancer cells, they started proliferating. Well, it turns out that it was the plastic that was leaching. So what they did, they chopped up all of these plastics, household plastics. They put them on a petri dish with the breast cancer cells, and they proliferated. And what they're finding is that the cans that we get our coconut milk and our beans from, that they found that these cans, they hold so much environmental estrogen. Wait, I have to see what it is, that it's, that the levels were actually 27 times higher than the amount that they found at Stanford University that was enough to make these breast cancer cells proliferate. And they found that 85% of the food cans in America's lined with these plastics. So if you're going to be eating out of a can, because we all love that coconut milk, that I suggest you really look for environmentally safe, and it'll have BPA free.